Lots of stuff to talk about today. So we go. Okay, so before you start playing on the calculators, because that's what we're going to do today, we're going to play on those calculators. So I want to talk about a couple of things. Okay, first off, we're reminding you that if you don't take a peek there in the back of the board, on the back board, and you look at the little schedule that's up there for you, you got tests on the 22nd. That's a week from tomorrow. Okay? You have a formative this week, Friday. And then on Tuesday, not only do you need your social security number, but we also need you to bring your Chromebook on Tuesday because it's electronic registration, and we're like, yeah, you got to register on the Chromebook. We'll have a station. We're gonna have a station rotation going on Tuesday, and one of the stations will be with us, getting you all set to go on the registration. Okay. So there we go on that. We will be working in that white packet. We will be working in the notes packet that you got yesterday in class. If you wanted to have that out today too, that is where you will find all of your notes. Yep. So today we're going to do the exact same examples that we did yesterday, except now instead of factoring, and yesterday when we factored this, what did we get? We got x was equal to, what did we get for this one yesterday? X is equal to 2/3 and 1/2? 3 halves and 1/2? Okay, right? That's what we got yesterday when we factored it. You got all of that work on there. Today now, what we're going to do is we're going to solve that exact same problem, only with graphics. Okay, here we go. Now I got the calculator up. So the first thing that you are going to do, and a lot of you need to pay attention to this because you haven't used these before. Okay, so the side conversation should probably cease. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to turn it on. This on key is up here in the upper corner. Okay. Now, some of you, because you're using them that have been used before, I would actually like you to double tap the on key so that when you push the on key a second time, you should get a screen that looks similar to this. It might not look exactly like this, but you should get a screen that looks very similar to that. Okay? Now, we here in pre-calculus are big on documents. We are not big on the sketchpad because the sketchpad doesn't do as much as the documents. You have more things to do in documents than you have in sketchpad. So we always ask that you start a brand new document. So you can either do one of two things. You can either scroll over to the one and hit the center. You can either hit enter or the center part of the touchpad, or you can simply touch the number 1. And if it prompts you to save the document, say no, I don't need to save the document, but now you should be, so you want to double tap. Now you want to hit number 1. And then no. So you don't need to save it. Now if you were on your own personal one, that's up to you if you start a new document every time, or you can just start a new page every time too. Okay? But here is this one. We want to solve that problem with graphing, so we are going to want to choose number 2. Again, you can scroll down and hit enter, or you can simply push the number 2. We want to enter a graph. We should all be staring at a blank graph right now. And then we would want to add in that graph. What was the equation of the graph? Or of the, yep, go ahead. 4x squared minus 8x plus 3, and then that was equal to 0, right? Okay, so now I've got two options. Option number 1 is I can graph this one. And when I hit enter, I see a graph. Then I can hit tab and I can enter 0 and hit enter, and that gives me a second line, and I can find those intersection points. Okay? Or I can do some other things. So, but either way, where we find those other things is in the menu. Okay? Menu is what we are going to want to do. Tab. No, you can't have the equal 0 part. Enter. Okay? We are going to be analyzing this graph. Now, if you put the second function of 0 in, you are going to analyze the intersection points. If you didn't, and you just want to find the zeros, we can just find the zeros using number 1, the zeros. Okay? So now what that does is when you click that on, you get a dashed line. And what you're going to do is, now here is where I will tell you, eyes on me for this one. Okay? You're going to open up a range of values on your, Courtney, eyes on me. You're going to open up a range of values on your graph where you're going to find the 0 or the intersection point is. The downfall is this. If you try and get too cute and make your graph or your area be like this big, you're probably going to miss it. It doesn't matter if it's this big or this big. So make it be as big as possible, but you can only do one at a time. So what I mean by that is you're going to hit this middle button here first, and that's going to lock. No, maybe I hit it wrong. Okay, that's going to. Oh, what's going on there? So you're going to lock it in, and then you're going to drag. Why is it dragging? I got to use the mouse for this. Okay, so your mouse is this keypad up here. Where's my mouse? Menu. Come on. Analyze 0, 1. Okay, so now, come on, mouse. And then you drag it. See how it's dragging? It's making that gray area right there. And as soon as I get into one of the things that I predicted, it will give me that. It'll give me that 0. And then when I hit the middle button again, now what that does is that tells me that I have a 0 at 1/2. Then you got to do it again for the other one. Menu, analyze, 0. Go over here and do it with the old mouse. And there's the other one. Okay. 4x squared. It was 4x squared plus 8x? Minus 8x. Minus 8x. Minus 8x plus 3. There. And then tab and 0. So there it is now with the intersection. We'll get the same thing. Menu, analyze graph, intersection. There's my first one. Menu, analyze graph, intersection. There's my second one. Okay. All right. So now in this method, so we had this one. So this is one of them now. On Second page, yep, okay. So in this particular one, now you've got two options when you have a function equaling a function. Okay? Option number one, I should say you have a few options, but before we get to the graphing part, option number one is you could simplify your function or your equation so that you get it all to one side or make it nice and neat. In this case, with an absolute value, that's not possible. Okay? Because you got to work the two equations and all that fun stuff. Okay? So one way around that is you can start a new graph. Now you can do many things with these graphs. Okay? One thing you can do is you can always hit tab if you are an existing graph. You can hit tab and that opens up the 99 possible functions that you could put on this one graph. Okay? And then you can just go back and write over the top of one. Okay? So that's one option. The other option, oops, let me get out of this. The other option is you could go Control Dock right here, and that would add a page, and you can add a new graph on top of that. Either way, doesn't matter to me which way you choose. Add a graph, Control Dock. Just need a calculator for today. You have that page from yesterday. Okay? So, I'm going to go back in. Oops. Let me escape out of there. I'm going to go back in, and I am going to go right over the top of this one. So I'm going to delete all that out of there. And I'm going to, option number one says here that we can graph two equations on one page. So we're going to graph two functions and do it the intersection method. So the first one, absolute value. Here's where you find absolute value. You're going to go Control. I gotta think now for a second. No, you don't need to go Control because it's that button right there. Okay? This button right here takes you to a shortcut key for all of them. And this one right here that looks like an absolute value is an absolute value. Just click on it and it'll pop right in. And then I believe it was 2x minus 3 needs to go inside. Another option that you could do is you could type the letters A, B, S, open parentheses, 2x minus 3. And when you hit enter, your graph should change to an absolute value V graph. Now we're going to need to hit tab. And we're going to have to put the other side of the equation, which was x squared. And then now we can hit enter. I don't know what's going on here. Escape. Okay, so now you should be here. Is everybody here? What's the downfall with this? with this picture as it stands? How many intersection points do we need? How many do you see? 1. Okay, so we can find that intersection, menu, analyze graph, intersection. So there is my first intersection, right? But my other one, it appears, is going to be up here somewhere. I can't analyze that without seeing it. I've got to be able to see it. So there's a couple of different things that you can do. Your mouse, or the arrow, if you will, there's the arrow. When you click and hold the center button, what will happen is it will become, come on now, it should become a hand. See that hand there? And that hand is closed, meaning it's grabbing onto the graph at that point in time, and you can drag it down until you see that intersection point. That hand also works on the axes. And then what that does is it changes the scale, and it changes where that you can see things. It expands and zooms in and zooms out on either axis. Control Z.
Oh shoot, but it went back.
Option number 2 for this same part is you can take your equation and you can make it be all one-sided. Meaning you could say here x squared minus the absolute value of 2x minus 3. Or you could say the absolute value of 2x minus 3 minus x squared. And you could graph that one, and then you would be finding the zeros. Okay? So then you would find the zeros off of that. So I'll start on a fresh graph. You can just write over the top of one of yours, x squared minus the absolute value of 2x minus 3. And it's a funky looking graph that looks like that. Now you're looking for zeros. And you get the exact same zeros as we had before. X equals -3, x equals 1, x equals -3, x equals 1. So now let's talk about an inequality. Okay? So on our inequality, it's 2x, absolute value of 2x minus 1 is greater than 5. Okay? So let's graph those two first. So I'm going to start with a brand new graph. So again, getting a new graph, control dot, and I can add a graph to that page, or to a new page. And so now I'm going to need to graph two things. The first thing is going to be the absolute value of, I believe it was 2x minus 1. Yes, 2x minus 1. 2x minus 1. So there is the absolute value of 2x minus 1. Then I need to tab and I need to graph just 5. Okay. So here is what my graph looks like. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit more just so that it's bigger for you guys all to see. Okay. So there is my graph. I need to know those intersection points. Yes? Okay. So I'm going to menu, analyze, intersection. Menu, analyze, intersection. Now, what this is asking where this part is bigger than that part, right? Okay, so on my graph, on my particular graph, just because how the coloring worked out, this is where purple, because purple is my absolute value part, where purple is above or below green. Above green. Well, that happens over here and over here. So the solution here, I'll write it down here. The solution here would be from negative infinity all the way up to negative 2. That's that side, unioned with from 3 to positive infinity would be the solution to that. Okay? Which should have been the same solution that we got yesterday with it. Okay? Now, I know I went a little fast on those steps, but all of those steps of what I did are written in on these. I strongly recommend that if you are still confused about those, that you, one, pop yourself into the resource center. There's graphing calculators available there. Play around with that stuff. Ask questions. Some of your friends may have some. A couple of you guys have your own of these. Okay, so you got the only way that you are going to get, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know how rude you are right now? Absolutely and positively rude. I am trying to give you keys to be successful in this class, and none of you care because you're more worried about leaving and going to the next class than you are about the words coming out of my mouth. That is just flat out rude. The only way you're going to get better at using these calculators, and this is not the only time that you're going to see these calculators this year. We're going to use them, if not every day, every week. The only way you're going to get better is if you use them. You need to practice this. Flat out. Practice. Now, you probably didn't hear me because there's too many side conversations going on. But there are calculators available in the Math Resource Center for you to practice on. Some of your friends have calculators that you can practice on. Okay? You need to use them. Okay? Did you have a question?
It was